and welcome back into a brand new episode of Tribal Council Chat, the flagship show of the Reality Realm podcast network. As always, we're your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller.
And my name's Brett Parnell.
And let's dive in. So, episode 8 of Survivor 48. What are your overall thoughts and opinions?
I'm disappointed this week.
Yeah?
That tribal, I was just starting to really like the person who went home. And then just telling them the tribe has spoken.
You know, I wanted to like her, but she keeps going against the people that I like most. So I was not disappointed to see her go for that reason.
Yeah.
Because my favorite is Eva right now, and I love Joe, and she's constantly like going at Joe, wanting him gone.
I'll hold on to my thoughts, but I think this week, more than any week of the season, normally we just kind of be like, okay, tribal happened, and we've already explained how they got to the decision at camp. This was the week that I really want to talk a lot about tribal.
Yeah, because I think Camilla's biggest ally was the fact that Chrissy wouldn't stop talking.
Yeah.
So Chrissy kind of did herself in there. That's my notes on her so far. We'll get deeper into that.
Absolutely. But let's get into the beginning of the episode. Bruce, what are your thoughts about how everything started today?
My first thought is to want to know who your player of the week is, actually.
Oh, yes. My player of the week. It has to be Eva.
Yeah.
Not only getting the team reward, winning the individual challenge against Mary, and then getting the advantage after. But I just want to say, I can't remember who it was on the bench, Kyle or Shaheen. Shout out to one of them for player of the week. I'm just going to give an honorable mention here. Calling out Jeff for taking out these challenges that used to last all day and really test your endurance, and now they just last a few minutes because they've made them so difficult right in front of Jeff while you're playing Survivor. That was hilarious.
Yeah. The challenge that ends up being the immunity challenge, like the individual one, I wish that would have been the challenge from the beginning, like it used to be. But I don't I kind of like this challenge structure where it's in stages. If the last stage wouldn't have been an iconic challenge already.
Yeah, I like this challenge structure. I even liked it with this challenge. The only thing that I didn't like about it, and that's kind of what was being said from the bench, is when Perv did this all afternoon, you actually could stand on it.
Yeah, well, they hadn't gone through the 2 grueling challenges before that, and were...
Yeah, fair. But, I mean, it's gotten to the point with a lot of these classic endurance challenges that every season they're adding new steps only to make it more difficult, to the point that, like, the bucket over your head challenge in Winners at War was, 14 minutes?
I don't know.
When that used to be a challenge that would be 7 or 8 hours.
But that's not a challenge thing. That's more of a player thing. The challenge itself still worked the same.
No, because production added in, you now have to do it well on a balance beam, and you can't touch your other arm, and made it much more complicated for the players.
I forgot about that stuff.
And I kind of think it's the same rationale that I'm making with this poll challenge. Is it used to be before, how badly do you want immunity? Are you willing to hold on to this poll until the sun goes down? And now it's become who has the smallest feet and can actually get something off of this, basically poll that you have to just wrap your legs around and hope for the best, because there's really nowhere to go.
See, the poll really doesn't feel that different to me. I feel like the wrapping your legs, people have been doing that on this challenge for a while.
They have to get breaks, but the footholds, like Shaheen says, non-existent.
I mean, kind of, but not really non-existent. And you look at 45, and D kind of won because of the foothold, because of her toe thing.
Yeah.
Like she had a whole confessional about how her toe helped her in that challenge.
But I guess that's the point. If you, a la me, with size 11 and a half feet, your toe means is not going to make a difference. You just lose.
Yeah.
I don't think that neither Joe nor David stood a chance in here because of what production's done to the challenge.
Honestly, the challenge itself really didn't feel that different to me, but I kind of see what you're saying. From a glance, the footholds don't look that much shallower to me.
They talk a lot in the episode saying that, including coming right from Jeff, that they are. So
No,
that's
I know he said they are, but like if he hadn't pointed it out, I wouldn't have noticed it.
fair enough.
I'm with you on Eva Player of the Week though. She's and a lot of the Survivor Online community does not like her or Joe or this alliance anymore. I like the alliance minus David. I'm still rooting for them, but she wins immunity. She got an advantage, which I want to clear something up real quick because I've also seen on Twitter and a little bit on Instagram people thinking they planted the advantage right in front of Eva so that she would find it, trying to rig it. Guys, it was assigned seats. Everyone had their own setup bowls.
Yeah,
This was
it was part of the reward.
immunity winner. This was not for anyone to find, but planted right in front of one person. Why else would they have assigned seats?
Exactly. I agree with you, but I do got to ask you one question and see your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Just because it was the chip bowl that was put in the assigned seat of the immunity winner, if you are really using your observation, what's stopping somebody from grabbing it right out of Eva's bowl?
The fact I don't think anyone else could reach her bowl if you look at the picture.
They have legs.
I don't
they can
know.
stand
Nobody
up and
did
walk.
I don't think anybody.
They didn't. I'm glad they didn't, but
I don't think anybody else even saw it.
They didn't. Exactly. That's my point. I'm just saying I don't think it's 100% for her because I do think it's totally fair game if somebody notices it and grabs it.
Well, that's when you just get a heroes versus villains Treasure Island cat fight for the item.
That is exactly what I was thinking of.
But like the whole, I just want to shoot down the idea that this was available for anyone, and they planted it right there because they wanted her to get it. It was
no.
9 seats. Everyone had their own chip bowl, and the thing is for the next night, meaning the person that gets it would have to be guaranteed to be there the next night. So
absolutely.
This was for the winner. This was not just planted for her to find. I know people have. Now, if we want to talk about whether we like the idea of giving the immunity winner an advantage or not, that's another discussion. A lot of people don't like that. To me, like they earned it. They won. That's just part of the reward in my mind.
I'd agree.
If some of the quote unquote weaker people want an advantage, go win the challenge.
Yeah.
Like you don't get to complain. Survivor Twitter just drives me insane, and they hated last night's episode, so I was kind of on one mentally.
Yeah.
I don't really get into arguments, but I had arguments back at them in my head that didn't make it to my keyboard, so they make it here.
I miss Survivor Twitter because I was on Canadian politics Twitter last night and tonight, and that is 1 million times more toxic. So
I didn't know you were on Twitter anymore.
I have a burner account just so that I can follow the Canadian election, which I will delete soon.
Oh, well, you have not. Your hiatus from Twitter. Survivor Twitter is pretty much the same. They all think the same, and they go after anyone who thinks differently than them. Essentially,
I remember.
It drives me nuts because I tend to disagree with them. Survivor Facebook isn't as bad though.
No, you're right.
And the Twitter people complain about the Facebook people, which is kind of funny to me. But the opinions on those two different sites are usually vastly different.
Yeah, they are.
But diving in, where'd we go? We see Shaheen talking about how last tribal he built trust with David and Kyle, and that he doesn't have a relationship with Mary, but he trusts her because apparently her and David are really tight. And since when? Why are we just now learning how tight David and Mary are?
Yeah. I mean, at least they're showing us side bits that who knows, maybe you'll be important. I'm not saying it's not important, but might not be important. Whereas in other seasons in the past, if a relationship wasn't important, it was just never mentioned at all, even if it was real. Something like Michelle and Joe, we see that have came up after in discussions after the season.
Well, my mind goes to 41, where you had, and I'm not a huge Erica person, but they basically didn't show Heather at all on that season. Like they kind of gave Chrissy an invisible edit this season. She probably
Yeah.
got twice the amount of screen time Heather got. It felt like, and then
And
the
I've heard
finale
that there
like,
was some reasons behind that.
but hear me where I'm going though.
So
Because you say they don't show relationships that aren't important. 41, we get to the finale, and with Erica, it's, oh, me and Heather have been this close the whole time, and this and this and this, and all this stuff that they had been like each other's number one the whole season.
Yeah.
And we saw none of it. So just because a relationship's important even doesn't guarantee they'll show it.
A player, all I can say to that is that at least when they were on the tribal beach, the only thing that we saw from Heather and from Erica is that a player that you and I both like in Sydney was eating up all of their attention span.
But like once Sydney goes home, they couldn't have shown the two of them like
you would think.
Because like we get to the finale and we realize the two of them were really close the whole time. 41 wasn't edited super great, I guess is my
No, it wasn't.
It's not Samoa, but it's not great.
You're right.
So we get to camp the next morning and we get one of those camp life scenes I always like. That's not game wise, where they're just talking about if they could take different animals in a fight, if they could take a gorilla or a hyena or whatever animal.
I was like, what a throwback to the Orange Tribe at the beginning of this season. Just having these random interactions. It was great.
Who was it that said they could beat a gorilla in a fight? Because no, you can't.
No. I forget. But
I think they were like counting on
it was Joe
to sleep or something and sneaking up on it, but still.
You can't. A gorilla is about 1,000 pounds.
Yeah. And they're strong.
Yeah.
So.
I have looked into trying at some point in life to go gorilla trekking in the Congo.
Gorillas are one of my favorite animals. Like my tie for
in Rwanda
animals is gorillas and alligators.
Nice.
Weird combination, but oh well.
On that note, I
always want to see at the zoo.
I have seen an alligator in the wild.
Those things are so cool.
I know.
I've seen.
Luckily, I was safe enough. I was on a boat, and the alligator was just chilling on the dock that we scuba dive. Not scuba dive from, but the marina where the boat leaves.
I think you've sent me that picture, actually.
Probably.
That's funny. So
now comes the part of our weekly podcast where I have to interrupt this podcast to tell my friend Spencer to stop calling because we're live on the internet.
Because he doesn't know we're live, though.
I know, but he calls unannounced all the time.
So
anyway, keep going.
I'll catch up you guys in the audience while he does that with his phone. As we get tree mail that today's challenge is going to be in pairs, but we have to figure out our own pairs. And if this wasn't the most awkward silence for a little bit following pairs, of like nobody wanting to speak up about how to figure out pairs.
Yeah.
And Joe tells people, he's like, hey, speak up. Somebody say something. Because he wants to see where people's heads are at, and he wants to pick up on alliances, which is kind of smart.
He just wanted to be on a team with Eva.
But like what he said makes sense though. Wanting to see someone speak up and claim
Oh
something,
yeah,
so you can, because Shaheen picking Camilla, that like I don't think anyone people really saw that. Well, I think Joe saw that coming, but like that raised some flags. Like this kind of
it's
did
true.
show where alliances were at in a way.
Oh, absolutely. Um, just the fun. I always like some of these class moments when we get like a throwback to really old Survivor in the new era. Did this bring you back to Jerry in Australia with Joe?
Kind of.
That's exactly the first thing I thought of when Joe picked Eva. I'm like, that is exactly like Jerry saying I picked Colby.
I
Eva
also
is by far the strongest girl left in the game. By far the strongest girl that was cast on the season.
Yeah, I do want to take a second to complain about Chrissy though, because after all the pairs are figured out, we get a confessional of her complaining about Joe and Eva ending up together, and why do we let these two strong people get paired together?
Yeah.
You didn't have a partner yet when they paired up together.
Yeah.
Why did you? If you're so uppity about them not wanting them to be paired together, pick one of them. What are you doing? Why are you?
Yeah, you're right. If Chrissy said, let's just be honest though, if Chrissy said, I want Joe as my partner, Joe would have said, I want Eva as my partner.
But I don't know, because then you're just making waves unnecessarily. But like, even if he does do that, then Joe's the one that looks bad there.
You're right.
Like
I
Chris,
just think that that's what would have happened.
yeah, I think Chrissy just wants to complain about Joe and Eva any chance she gets because she doesn't like them.
Yeah. And I do
That's
like
the
both of
vibe she
them.
gives off this episode.
My take is, and I'll get to this in Tribal, but I do like both of them, but I do see her point too.
I see her point. She's just going against the people that I like. So therefore, I am
Fair
rooting for her to go home in that tribal.
enough.
But again, and again, depending on what
Now
website
you
you're
know how
on,
I
I am.
feel whenever people go for ugly.
Yeah. And again, this depends on what website you're on, but I may or may not be in the minority of fans that I like this majority alliance. These are the people I'm rooting for. Minus David, because he's completely lost me after last week and this week. Because he was kind of a jerk, arrogant jerk in the challenge last week, and the way he talked to Kyle this week was,
But Cedric's on the jury, and Charity is gone home. So I have to be cheering for David.
yeah, I'm honestly just cheering for the people I like more than my own team right now. But
Uh,
Kevin did tell me you're mathematically eliminated after this past week, though.
you would know.
Yeah, he's keeping track of that. Because we changed the point system this year and it was too complicated for me. So he said
Yeah,
he
it's
do
too
it.
complicated for me too.
Because he didn't like the old point system. So, and this one is admittedly kind of better. But so our pairs before we.
We'll probably do it again for 49 and then change it again for 50.
Well, do we have? No, let's just keep it this way. I don't want to. We don't need to keep changing it. But that's an off-air conversation. Our pairs that we
Yeah.
come up with in this scene are Kyle picks Camilla, David picks Mary. We mentioned Joe and Eva. Kyle picks Chrissy, which keeps his relationship with Camilla a secret, and we end up with Star and Mitch.
Yeah.
And so the next scene, last scene before the challenge, is where we kind of see it Eva setting up that Chrissy could go home here because she's telling people what Chrissy said last week that the other group should target Shaheen if they're smart, and that she said the bigger people need to go. And she also points out Chrissy's speech from Tribal last week that she wants to play Survivor and play hard, which is apparently to play hard you need to lie and cheat and backstab, according to Chrissy. So it's we really kind of see this being set up here of Chrissy versus the majority.
Yeah, absolutely. Any thoughts on the challenge before we get to the end?
No, I'll explain it a little bit. So it's
Sure,
in
go ahead.
3 stages. The first stage that each pair race through this narrow sand-filled tunnel for a puzzle step that and then they get out of it and they dig up and find another puzzle step. And the last 2 pairs to finish are done. And those 2 pairs go on a journey, by the way.
Yeah.
But
because they are competing against each other to lose their vote without the possibility of reward. That's their punishment for losing.
Okay.
One person will lose their vote and the other 3 nothing will happen to.
The second stage is that you're using a bunch of these puzzle steps that you've just got 2 of to build a staircase to get up to the rope bridge and use planks to cross the rope bridge. And the last team to finish is eliminated. And Kyle and Christy get eliminated and they fall through their rope bridge at one point.
And they go back to camp. Nothing happens.
Yeah. Which honestly we could have done with the first 2 pairs also. The journey isn't necessary, but I don't hate it either.
I mean, we have a vote to talk about at the end of the episode today. I'm sure the fans will have some thoughts about losing votes.
Yeah. And so the 4 that move on to the individual challenge are David, Mary, Joe, and Eva. And the final stage is handcuff, which is just hanging on a pole that has little foot slits cut down it at different intervals. And at this point, you guys know, I'm rooting for Eva. And she ends up winning, which made me very happy. But
well done to her.
I do like this conversation. This made me laugh when it was down to the final 2, which was her and Mary. Jeff says, "Don't let us distract you." And Eva goes, "I like the distractions. Keep chatting."
That was funny.
So Jeff kind of monologues like a Jeff does. And he goes, "Sometimes they like the distractions. Sometimes I'm annoying and they want me to stop." And right when he says I'm annoying and they want me to stop, Mary just goes, "Please."
That was great.
So he stops. So
when Eva said, "I keep going, I like the distractions," my mind just went to imagine on some returning player season a head-to-head showdown at the end of a challenge between Eva and Jonathan Penn.
Oh gosh, yes, please.
Yeah, because we all remember Penn getting into fights with Jeff over the distractions. That is just classic.
Or like the Alec and Christian one in David versus Goliath that went 6 hours if it had been Christian and Eva.
Yes.
But so
Christian can dictate his robotics textbook to the tribe, while Eva can tell us about the last 20 years of the NHL.
Yeah. So just skip 2010, 2013, and 2015. I don't need to relive those years. But
my dad is going to know exactly what you mean, even if most people don't. I don't have to worry about it because Eva wasn't born in 1966-67.
Well, yeah. I think that was the Blues' first year of existence, either 66, 67, or 67, 68. So
it was just so funny when I came back from my trip because I was on a WestJet flight going from San Juan, Puerto Rico into Toronto, going back to Ottawa. We touched the ground in the middle of the fog after circling a bit, and the pilot just goes, "I want to welcome you all to the home of the 1967 Stanley Cup champions."
Yeah. Shout out to Toronto, I guess. But so we leave the challenge. Chrissy and Kyle are alone at camp, no reward. And this is where Chrissy is really pushing to take out Joe. But Kyle tells us that he has a good relationship with Joe and he wants Shaheen instead. Which was interesting to me.
I was thinking for a while that maybe I was about to call this upset in that chat group that we're in.
Yeah.
When I said out of nowhere that Shaheen was going to go earlier in the day, and no one else said that.
Yeah. So we get that brief scene, and then we go to the journey, and we're competing against each other this time. It's not one of those everyone plays an individual game. And there are red balls and there are gray balls in the shoot, and the red are bad, but the gray, those ones are good. And on each person's turn, they can either grab one or two balls from the main chute and put them in their chute. And the first person to have three red balls in their own chute loses their vote.
Yeah.
I don't mind this game. This isn't a
No, this was great. I really liked watching this. The strategy involved. We've seen it before in other ways across Survivor, so it's not a completely new concept. I did get a good kick at the end, though, when Star is just expecting Mary to take one ball, leaving another one.
Yeah.
Knowingly that there is no incentive to winning the game. You win the game by not coming last. So if you're Mary, you have to, or if you're anybody that's playing this game, you have to play with the Sandra strategy. Anybody but not that's not me. You have the chance to give a red ball to someone behind you, you give it to them.
Yeah.
Done.
They were absolutely teaming up on her, though, Camilla.
Oh, yes. I'm just saying, once you start getting to the end, anytime those, if someone can pick up the third ball, or the third red ball, that ends the game. It's not like you have to be the last surviving player without three. That would be a totally different game.
Yeah. So Star does end up leaving.
You know what would be really fun?
What?
Have a supersized version of this game for, like, Final 9 immunity. Huh. And only one person gets it.
Interesting. I'd be okay with that.
I would love to see that.
So we go to the reward after Star loses her vote. We talked about Eva's advantage already. She found a scroll in her chips. No, it was not rigged in her favor.
Yep.
David talks about how he's there with three people he really trusts. And he asks Joe how much he trusts Shaheen. And Joe really responds and says, Shaheen's been 100% solid this whole time. I do trust him. And David is wary of Shaheen because he thinks he may be working with Camilla. And this goes back to our pair selections earlier. Which is interesting because Joe expected Kyle to pick Camilla and David, I guess, didn't. So those two aren't on the same page, I guess.
Yeah.
And David and Mary pitch Camilla as the vote to go home instead of Chrissy really hard. Which, what did you think of that at the reward? Because their pitch was not subtle at all.
No, it was not subtle. Especially in a reward, it's a bit hard to be because in rewards, I've always said this before, like, the number one thing with rewards in Survivor when you get these 2, 3, 4 people going off on their own isn't the food. The biggest advantage is being able to strategize with somebody, anybody, and not worrying about what's going on with the rest of the tribe.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect opportunity to make those unsettled moves, knowing that it's not like there's somebody up in a tree named Tony Vlachos spying on you. You're on reward. You earned your privacy in addition to whatever the reward is.
Yeah. Shout out to the spy nest, by the way. That was a great reference there. And so, yeah, and so we get back to camp. Eva opens her scroll, and we learn that it's one where she has to sneak out of camp in the middle of the night the next night to go find it. And I'm excited to see this.
I'm really excited to see this.
I especially like the ones when they do this pre-merge where it's not only sneak out of your camp but into the other tribe's camp.
Yeah.
39 and 40 when they did it those seasons. But I'm excited
Yeah.
to see this.
That was exciting. It'll be interesting to see. I'm curious though. I wonder why they're doing it across two different episodes. If timing just worked that way, or if maybe it's some sort of huge dramatic moment in the game that they want us to see another week because it's going to take up too much time.
Yeah, true.
We will be back here in 7 days with that answer.
So this next scene is where things start to get interesting because we see Joe tell Kyle that David wanted to do Camilla and that he doesn't really want to do that. And Kyle takes that as an opportunity to tell Joe how Chrissy threw his name out there. And so Joe and Kyle are on the same page, wanting to go for Chrissy. It makes sense. And the next scene we get is David and Kyle talking about this, and this was quite a scene.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I couldn't hear you that well.
All of it?
Just what you want me to respond to.
David and Kyle in the woods talking about the vote.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was definitely a good moment. I think the relationship here with Camilla is the key aspect. And we've known from the original tribe that Kyle and Camilla are so close, right?
Yeah. Nobody else does, though.
Yeah, nobody else knows that, which makes that to be such an important alliance in this game, especially with somebody like Camilla, who's so far, I would say, playing the best strategic game.
Yeah.
Eva's probably playing the flashiest game. Camilla's playing the best under the radar game.
I would agree with that.
I would love to see the two of them sitting at final.
Yeah.
What do you think about this moment?
Again, it gets worse later, but I feel like David is just insisting that everyone go along with his plan and his shot that he called and doesn't really want to listen to anything else.
True.
And we get that more on the beach in a scene or two, and I'll get into it there, but I also think Kyle needs to protect his ally, but fighting so hard for it like this is also risky because no one knows you two are tight. And now because you fought so hard for this, you've raised a red flag with David that he's wondering why you're fighting so hard now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Kyle then runs and secretly tells Camilla they have to go for Chrissy because David wants to flip the vote onto her. And so that's what... And I love these two as a pair, honestly.
Yeah. I definitely like them as a pair too. I think they're playing that like perfect under the radar alliance game. The two of them could maybe not come across as huge threats until the final like 6-7 when it might be a bit too late.
Yeah.
I could see either of them winning the game.
I could too. And I think they're who a lot of people are rooting for one of the two of them to win the game also.
Yeah.
So our last scene before Tribal is this powwow with the majority group, although Shaheen either wasn't there or didn't say anything. So that was interesting. And they're debating Chrissy versus Camilla. And this is where I really have the note down. David is getting snippy with Kyle. Like, he's saying, like, oh, why are you making this difficult? Why can't you just go with this? To me, felt like he didn't want to listen to any plan other than his own.
Yeah, definitely. Which even though David's on my team, seems to be his downfall at this point in time.
David's in the alliance I'm rooting for. I like this strong person alliance, and we'll get to that at Tribal.
Excuse me.
I don't love how David was at Tribal, but I feel like something he said is being misconstrued a lot online. But I, yeah, I like Joe. I like Shaheen. I love Eva. I like Kyle. I can't with David anymore. He's exhausting me. So going into Tribal, my first note was I hope Chrissy goes home. Just like I said, she's going against the people I like, and she's really been annoying me lately. But Camilla said something interesting, and because David and Chrissy get into this argument, we'll get to about gameplay in a second. That Camilla also has a really smart comment on. But Camilla says beforehand, I don't think I had the same types of conversations with people because it sounds like there's a group that's flip flopping back and forth, and I haven't done any flip flopping. And I'm like, this is an interesting quote, but you may have just given away that Kyle told you you were a target.
Yeah. Which is not something that you want to do, especially in a game where everyone just needs to get through one more step. You don't have to win the game with 10 people, 9 people left.
Yeah. And so let's get into David versus Chrissy, because I assume this is what you meant when you said you had a lot you wanted to talk about at Tribal.
Yeah. So this is the episode that 5 minutes before Chrissy walked out of the game, I really started to like her. I see what you mean. I like the alliance that you're cheering for. They're all entertaining, but like you said with David in the challenge last week, and then now again, I'm getting a sense that more so than just we're allowed to be in an alliance together, which of course you are. It's Survivor. Everyone can play a game with anyone they so choose. There seems to be almost in this season, I see where Chrissy's coming from, more a bit of not so much just an alliance, but entitlement. And why don't we be the season to do it differently? And that's fine for the people that can be in an alliance and want to do that, but recognize that not everybody is going to play your game.
Yeah.
You cannot expect people to play your game for you and just let you walk to the end. If you do, you will be sorely mistaken when you be the one who gets your torch snuffed, maybe not tonight, but maybe in a couple weeks. And I don't just mean David. It could be Joe. It could be Eva. It could be anyone there.
Yeah. I think that's mostly a David thing, because
yeah,
I don't think anyone else is necessarily getting upset that, like, blaming people for not playing their game.
But let's make a throwback.
And
sorry.
David does say some things I don't agree with, like having a deserving winner, and like,
yeah,
I'm all for it. Like, I'm not going to fault them for wanting to play the honesty and integrity and clean game. I think a lot of people have kind of scoffed at that across the fandom. I don't mind that. I like that if you can pull it off.
I don't mind it if you can pull it off. But I'm going to go back a few seasons to when it was at War. And I'm sure one thing that everyone remembers when they hear Winners at War is Tony on the Lions and the Hyenas.
Yeah.
In my mind, David just expects the Hyenas to play the Lions game because they're going to be honest and integral and make it a good season.
Yeah.
And that's not the way that it's going to work. That's never the way that Survivor is going to work.
I think that this disconnect is David and Chrissy is David is part of the let's try to play a clean game. This works for us. And Chrissy
it was for him. And I agree with
the whole thing is let's play the game. And to play the game, honesty doesn't work. You need to lie, cheat, and backstab in order to actually play the game. And both of them think their way of doing it is the only way to do it.
Exactly.
And David's getting all the heat from the fandom because he's kind of a jerk this episode. but Chrissy's just as guilty of thinking her way is the only way to play. Difference is one of them is still in the game and one of them isn't. So.
Yes, and you're right. But I also do think that the one who's not in the game may have got enough attention to her cause that it will greatly damage the three that are playing that way's chance of winning the game.
I would say 4. I'll wrap Shaheen in there because he's okay. Joe and Eva strong.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I think Camilla has a great comment on here to both of them, and she really doesn't take a side. It's the perfect thing to say here if you're going to say anything, is everyone is trying to play the game. You can't fault anyone for playing the way that works best for them.
Yeah.
But
that's exactly it.
Doing a bad job of jury management, which is absolutely David, right?
Yes, that is 100% David.
And
it's to an extent, if she was still in the game, that's Chrissy as well. Who's doing an amazing job at jury management is Camilla.
Yeah. And I'm on record of predicting she wins right now, even though I'm rooting for Eva to win.
So am I.
So Camilla. And she's on my team on top of that. So
I'm on record as saying she's going to win, but I think at this point I'm cheering for her.
And so here's what I want to get to from David is, and this is a quote. I think this might be an exact quote, but maybe I was paraphrasing when I was writing things down, is we've had people get together and form alliances over so many different things like gender and etc. Now, all of a sudden, the one season where the stronger guys form together and don't want to be shields and say enough is enough, Chrissy's all up in arms about it.
And I see that point.
Yeah, but I don't like the way he's acting at Tribal.
But I don't think
I agree with.
But I don't think Chrissy is up in arms about it. I think that she's getting rightfully frustrated because she's being told that her way of playing the game isn't the right way to play the game. And there is no right and wrong way to play the game. Survivor has 3 guidelines: outwit, outplay, and outlast.
I would feel for her cause if she wasn't doing the exact same thing and saying things like, oh, when are we going to stop the honesty, integrity, and start actually playing the game and acting like her way, like
that's fair.
Lie, cheat, steal is the only way to play also. Like, she's doing the same thing he is. Nobody's just pointing it out.
Yeah. Because they know she isn't going to win the game.
Yeah. I will say, though, I don't have full transcripts from Tribal. He said something at Tribal about the strong guys don't usually win. Meaning that archetype of like the Ultra Challenge Beast, the Aussies, the Joe Anglems, that Jonathan Young, that type.
There's been one of 45.
And people on Twitter have taken, and I don't want to keep crapping on Twitter. It's other websites too. That's just the one I was on last night. And honest,
it's
Survivor online on enough different websites. Twitter is the most obnoxious one. That has somehow gotten misconstrued to as strong guys at all don't win, meaning that not just that archetype he was talking about. And someone posted a graphic that had the string of winners from 35 to 40, where all in a row it was Ben, Wendell, Nick, Chris, Tommy, and Tony.
Yeah.
And sarcastically saying like, oh, David says strong guys don't win, huh? That's not the same thing. Shut up.
No.
He means that specific archetype, which
exactly
they don't win. They get used as
the only one who's ever done it is Mike.
Threats early merge. They get used as shields.
The only one who's ever done it is Mike.
Yeah, and honestly, the only reason he did that is because he had to win those challenges or he was going home.
Absolutely.
Because he kind of did some things wrong socially. But
I'm sure Chrissy would say he was playing the game, that's for sure.
The letters from home thing was bad. Like that was a lapse in judgment. I attribute it to his mind wasn't in the right place that long out.
I am still gonna say it's a good move but what was a lapse in judgment was Mike letting who's that creepy guy? Dan talk him out of it.
Honestly, like I would have been disappointed if he had gone through with that, just because that's not him. Like
I would have been like, "This is great television," but
yeah.
then again, we talked about how I actually like watching fair play. So
I don't mind the lying and cheating or stealing. If I was out there, I would be taked off if someone used the letters from home to do that. But I don't know. But
maybe it's because I've like traveled Europe and the Middle East for a whole summer, but I'm always like, why are the letters from home that big of a deal? You're gonna go home in a week.
yes, but if you've gone that long without seeing or hearing from them, it's different.
Yeah.
Like when you're traveling, you still have a phone with you. You can still communicate with people if you want to.
You do now. When I did it, there was no such thing.
Oh, whatever. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And like I don't want to defend David because I agree with a couple things he said, but the way he's acting about it is so obnoxious. I can't get with it. But like he's right. And this is not just Twitter actually. This is the fandom as a whole kind of seems to poke fun of at the Strong People Alliance. But the immunity challenge beast threats like a Joe or an Eva or a David, they get picked off early merge all the time or get used as meat shields. It's objectively best for their game to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
People are just salty about it because the people they like better are going home. There's nothing wrong with the way they're playing the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've seen people compare the whole honesty integrity thing to Coach's cult on South Pacific.
No.
But I feel like these people are actually, there's people who have said they aren't, and I would love to hear that explanation. These people are actually playing the clean, straightforward game they say they want to play.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think
the coach. They say they're against this way of playing, but they've done it too. Show me the evidence and I'll consider it. I don't think.
Yeah, I agree.
Coach actually preached. Coach didn't play the way he said he wanted to.
The coach comparison is the language and the rhetoric as opposed to the actions.
Have you seen that coach comparison though that keeps coming?
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. I think it's more for people who are just like closing their eyes. It's the sound is the same. It's not the actual gameplay is the same.
Go and Eva and Shaheen, they say it, but they back it up with how they play.
Yeah.
David's his own thing that I'm kind of tired of, but he's playing that way too. But I don't know. The alliance I'm rooting for has taken a lot of heat since the episode. So
yeah.
And I get why people don't like that alliance. It's not the most exciting season, but to me, like a season doesn't have to have a ton of drama for it to be exciting. If I want drama and pointless conflict, I'll watch MTV. Which I do also. When they don't air seasons on streaming services I don't have, or they air it on cable, when All Stars has always been a Paramount Plus thing until this season. Now that I don't have cable, they decide to air it on cable. But that's a different conversation.
That is a different conversation. But hey, while we're there, I am about to publish, after we finish our recording tonight, the New Generation Challenge podcast, All Stars 5 finale. So if you're not waiting to watch it on streaming, go watch it, listen to our podcast with Titi and I talking about everything that went down last night in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And also that went down in terms of Adam and Avery's relationship.
Yeah. And I cannot wait to order that season on Amazon Prime Video soon.
And in addition to Adam and Avery's relationship, Melissa and Nicole's relationship.
That's a thing now. Oh my god, Nicole's exhausting.
I'm dying now. Anyway, anything
dying
else?
All week. What do you mean now?
What?
I said, haven't you been like dying all week? You haven't been feeling good.
I have been horrible.
Yeah, so you're not just dying now. You've been
I mean,
in the process
at your comment, it was too funny.
Align blindside first boot. Who you got?
Align blindside first boot. 3 people that tried to take down and not be afraid to go against the physical threats in the game and play intellectually instead of physically. Your options are John Cochran, Stephen Fishback, Aubrey Bracco. Bet you never thought I would put Aubrey in an aligned blindside first boot. There's a first time for everything.
I'm honestly not surprised. So,
Cochran, Fish, Aubrey.
Honestly, you'll be proud of me. Aubrey's my least favorite player of these 3. But
interesting.
I think I'm going to align with her.
Okay.
Because I'm first booting Cochran. He's super dangerous. He's the only one here. I love him on both of his seasons, but I can't go to the end with him. And I have a better shot of beating Aubrey, I think, than I do of beating Fish.
Fair.
Fish being a 0-vote finalist should be a federal offense.
I agree.
I completely understand and support why JT won. Don't get me wrong. But the fact that that vote was unanimous was wild.
Yeah. No question.
Again, if you watch JT's other seasons before you watch Token Change, though, you'll be shocked when you watch Token Change. I recommend doing it that way.
Yeah, it's funny.
I imagine it's a lot more fun than watching him in order.
Absolutely.
I watched Heroes versus Villains, then Token Change, then Game Changers. So I kind of, by the time I got to Game Changers, I had seen the duality of JT. But he's masterful his first season, and then just a total bonehead his other 2.
Yeah.
So
that leaves you with. Oh, so you've answered there.
Yeah.
Align Aubrey, blindside Fishback, and first boot Cochran.
Yeah.
I am going to agree with you on the winner. I am going to first boot Cochran.
You have to.
Yeah. Fishback is one of 2 players, in addition to Aubrey's arch nemesis, Michelle, that I think I would play the game most like.
Are they arch nemesis?
I don't think so. I'm just joking.
Okay.
I mean, is it even possible for someone like Michelle to have an arch nemesis in Survivor? I don't think so.
No, but I think she has 2 of them on the challenge.
More than 2, probably.
Well, there's 2 major ones that I have in my head.
Yes.
And I'd love to see those 2 interact with each other, by the way. I don't remember if we've seen that or not, but
I don't think we have.
I just want to see what
happens. I mean, Invasion of the Champions, they were both on, but Amanda was such a minor figure on that season.
We saw Amanda and Camilla go head to challenge Camilla, not Survivor Camilla. 2 very different people.
2 extremely different people.
Especially when we get the drunk version of Challenge Camilla.
The drunk version of Challenge Camilla puts the drunk version of anyone who's ever been on Reward and makes them look like they've never had a sip of alcohol in their life.
Pretty sure she threw a chair one episode of a season.
She also stole a golf cart.
I forgot about that. But, okay.
So I am going to first boot Cochran, like you say. I am going to, like I said, align with Fish back, I think we would play a very similar game. I think we have a very similar approach to the game. And that leads me to blindside Aubrey. I think Aubrey would be a very honest and unbiased juror, but also one that Victoria proved can be blindsided. What about you, you three?
Okay, I'm going to be a little defiant and just go against the grain with the fan base because I feel like I've already made an enemy of a majority of the online fan base this episode. So let's keep going. And I'll just go with the three of the strong guy archetypes. And so you have Jonathan Young, you have David from this season, and I will give you Ozzy for the third one because I know how much you love Ozzy.
Interesting. So,
sarcasm, by the way, for the audience. Brett does not love Ozzy.
So, first of all, now I'm just trying to think because after you talked about making a whole lot of enemies in the fan base, I just have Endgame stuck in my head while I'm trying to podcast. Second, so Jonathan, Ozzy, and who was my last option?
Jonathan, Ozzy, and David.
David. I'm going to align with David.
First and foremost. Way to get jury votes.
Yeah, it's a good way to get jury votes. He does not seem to be that popular. I drafted him on my fantasy team, and I have my apologies. I have a feeling if I did not draft David on my fantasy team, that the audience would have been having David on their team. So
I didn't mind him until like last week's episode in the chat.
Fair enough. That leads me to say that I am going to based on this one, I'm not sure. I keep going back and forth based on Game Changers Final Tribal Council. I am going to go and first boot Ozzy and blindside Jonathan, only because Ozzy took on the role of cheerleading for the dominant physical player very strongly in that final. So I don't think I'd be getting his vote.
Yeah. That's nobody was surprised that that's what Ozzy, like his speech in Game Changers was. Culpepper played the game I tried to play 4 times.
I just really wish that there was actual video of what happened after that final tribal council, which I will not talk about on here. I want to see that.
You'll appreciate this, by the way. I have a story from the Survivor party.
Okay.
I wore my Amanda Kimmel sweatshirt to that party, and I had taken it off because I was wearing my Mermaid Dragon shirt.
Nice.
And I strongly considered putting that on to go look for Ozzy to take a picture with him.
That's funny.
Because he kept walking by us during the episode, during commercial break. And I didn't actually get a picture with him till like afterwards when my sweatshirt was off to the side and we were just walking around Bar Cocina.
I love it.
But I figure you would appreciate that. They famously had a showmance, and I think dated after the show but broke up right before the reunion.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and again, not that I'm his biggest fan, but cool to get to say I met one of the absolute legend.
Oh, that would have been such a great experience. I would have loved to be at that event and meet Ozzy.
I literally probably talked to him for about 15 seconds max.
Nice.
Just because he was walking somewhere and I asked to take a picture with him. Then Kevin got a picture with him. He was nice to us. So
amazing. Well, that wraps it up. Can't wait to be back next week when we find out what happens on Eva's journey. Oh, by the way, real quick.
I am aligning with Jonathan first.
Oh, yes, sorry.
I'm aligning with Jonathan. I'm gonna see. Here's the thing. I normally pick my blindside person as someone that'll help pre-merge, keep my tribe away from tribal,
Yeah.
and that logically
Is
would speak to blindsiding Ozzy and first booting David. But you
yeah.
got me afraid of Ozzy as a juror.
Mm,
But I think David would probably be the same way. So I'm gonna first
yeah.
boot David and blindside Ozzy from my original logic anyway.
Good idea. Well, that was great. We'll be back next week. Very excited to figure out what happens on Eva's journey. Also, listen to the final for New Generation Challenge podcast. TT and I, after this episode, are going to take a bit of a break. We anticipate we'll be watching MTV drop the cast for 41 very soon. And with that, Bruce, can I make an announcement of a guest for 41 cast assessment?
Yeah, it's your show.
Okay. We are going to be having for our Challenge 41 cast assessment the iconic Divaya Dallas fan to talk about this cast, Bruce Heller.
Yes. And I believe
We,
I technically was a challenge fan before you were. I
yes, you were.
throw that out there.
So yeah, TT and I can't wait to have Bruce join us. D is going to be one of the players on this cast, at least is rumored. So we can't wait to see another Survivor winner after Michelle translate into being on the challenge and potentially being a mainstay on the show.
The fact that my favorite winner, Natalie Anderson, was only on one season of that show,
Yeah,
was doing really good till she got medically pulled. I think she was like pregnant.
She miscarried.
Yeah, but like got pulled for being pregnant
Yeah,
and never came back is insane.
that's
And she was killing
insane.
it until she
She
got pulled.
was.
I would like an explanation on that, please, if any MTV executives are listening right now.
If TT or I ever find one, maybe at Challenge Mania or something, I will ask that question for you.
Okay. With that being said, everyone grab your torches and head back to camp. Bye, everyone.
Bye.